Hello, BookTube. I have a Friday reads for you. It's Friday. It's the first day of May. It doesn't feel it. It's freezing cold, dark, pouring rain, sleet here in Boston. I'm going to be saying that forever because this weather is not going to change. But so it doesn't feel like the first day of May, but it is nevertheless Friday, and I love Friday reads because Friday reads are when BookTubers uh, give you the lay of the land. They talk about what their reading's been like for the week. They talk about their plans for the weekend. They talk about their dreams, especially now for the upcoming month. And I love videos like that, just pulse-taking videos like that. Friday Reads doesn't always work for me the same way because I talk about what I'm reading and the stuff that I'm doing all the time, several times a day. And also, Friday Reads, I can't look ahead to the month of May and tell you all the books that I'm going to read, because I plan on reading well over 100 books. I'm not going to make a video like that. And the same thing is true with looking back on the books that I read. But I do like to do a Friday Reads of a very limited scope. The things that have been on my immediate radar or on my immediate radar coming up. And I've got 6 books here that fit that bill. The first 3 I have already read. Although one of them is a reread that I'm going to do this weekend. The first one, I've already read it, and I went back and read it again because I badly needed to, and that is a Guinea Pig, Romeo and Juliet. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this series, but it is absolutely sublime. Someone dresses guinea pigs as characters. Uh, my only love sprang from my only hate. Too early seen unknown and known too late. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. I, I, I absolutely love these books. I have them all. I go back at them over and over again. The Guinea Pig Romeo and Juliet is not quite my favorite. I think my favorite is still the Guinea Pig Pride and Prejudice, but still. And there's a new one of these coming out. I will make sure to show it to you when I get it. But I went back to this and just had a blast, just a blast. Then I did a science fiction reread. I think I mentioned one of the little side effects of quarantine for me. I'm not having many of them. I'm much happier helping you through quarantine than I need any help myself. I'm not having many side effects. The small luxuries that I am missing, I am of course missing intensely, but I recognize that they're small. About once a month, I went up to the little old farmhouse in Vermont. That was a great, great treat. I brought Frida up with me, and it was a ball. And I haven't been able to do that, and who knows when I'll be able to do that again. And that, of course, stings a little. The Brattle Bookshop. I used to go to, there's a used bookstore here in Boston called the Brattle Bookshop. It's a great place, full of friends of mine. I used to go at least once a week, and sometimes more than that, and I can't go, and who knows when I will be able to. The bookstores, the library, the newsroom. I'm not able to do any of those things, but they're small. Most of what I do has not changed. I read and I write all day long. I play with Frida. I walk Frida. I talk with Frida. But one of the things I've noticed, one of the quarantine side effects that I've noticed is that I've been going to science fiction a lot. Science fiction and fantasy. I've been going back to it a lot. To such a point that I have been bellyaching to Mark Richardson at Richardson Reads up at the old farmhouse, that how much I wish that I had kept all the science fiction short story anthologies that I have had over the years. I've had hundreds of them over the years, and I tend not to keep them. So now that musical chairs have happened and we're all frozen with the book collection that we have, I'm looking around. I have hardly any, and like him, I associate science fiction with short stories. That's how I fell in love with it. Those were my first formative experiences with it. I came to science fiction novels much later than that. Now I still love them. But when I think science fiction, I think short stories. But even Analog and Asimov's, the square-bound science fiction periodicals, these things that I read on a regular basis, are suspended. They've suspended publication. And even if they hadn't, there are no bookstores that are open for me to buy them. But even if I'd subscribed, I still wouldn't be getting them. So I've been going a little, pulling my hair a little that I don't have enough science fiction anthologies, but I have nevertheless been slowly but surely rereading all the science fiction that I have, even novels. And I went back to this. This is an absolute classic. This is Fahrenheit 451. This is the TV adaptation cover that I think producers were kind of hoping that it would catch on. Michael B. Jordan is, of course, Eric Killmonger from Black Panther, and he was one of the main character in Fahrenheit 451, and I think they were hoping that this would catch on a little better than it did. But I reread the book. This has never been one of my favorites. I'm stuck with Bradbury because Fahrenheit 451 and Brave New World, or Fahrenheit 451 and The Martian Chronicles have never been my absolute favorite of his books, and I like others better. And as I was mentioning, I like his short stories a lot. But I went back and reread this in the hopes that maybe it wouldn't seem quite as wooden and telegraphy as it did every other time I've read it, and it maybe improved a little. Maybe I will come to like Bradbury a little better as time goes on. And then this next one is a reread that I planned for this weekend, but I have already read it. In fact, I've read it twice. But this is, as a number of you pointed out to me, a very contentious subject. This is not settled historical record. The historical canon on this is not settled. And that makes it all the more fascinating to reread. And that is, this is by Georg Friedrich. This is The Fire, Der Todd. This is his study of the bombing of Germany by the Allies at the end of World War I, at the end of World War II. And it's a merciless study. It's wide-eyed and very cold and very well done. It is a contentious subject, but one of you sent me this copy, and that was amazingly generous. So I'm going to reread it and see what I make of it all, especially since this 2020 I'm going to get, if publishing schedules hold true, I'm going to get at least 2 books that cover this subject. Big books that write about a lot of other things too, but that cover this subject, and it'll be interesting to see. This book will feature in their bibliographies. It'll be interesting to see if those authors take issue with some of this author's conclusions or not. But one of the things one of the real eerie, feelings that you get when you read this book, and I know that I will feel it again when I reread it. Every once in a while, a history book will come along where you're reading it, and even before you're finished, you realize, this is going to be in every bibliography that I read from now on. No one is going to be able to ignore this book, ever. It's going to be in every bibliography that even remotely touches on this subject for the rest of time. That's an amazing feeling when that happens, when you're reading a book. I had that feeling with Ronald Sims' The Roman Revolution, where you're reading it and you realize, oh, okay, that's this kind of book. So whether I agree with you or not, no one can ignore what you're writing now. You're going to be mentioned in every book. So we'll see. We'll see what those 2 books do. But then we have 3 forthcoming books that I have not read yet. I think these are all May releases that I just haven't done yet. The first one is by Nancy Thorndike Greenspan, and this is Atomic Spy, about Karl Fuchs, about German by birth, British by naturalization, communist by conviction. Klaus Fuchs, and I know I'm mispronouncing his name, okay, this is a family channel, was a fearless Nazi resistor, a brilliant scientist, and a highly effective spy. He was convicted of espionage by Britain in 1950 for handing over the designs of the plutonium bomb to the Russians, and has gone down in history as one of the most dangerous espionage agents in American and British history. He put an end to America's nuclear hegemony and single-handedly heated up the Cold War. But was he really evil? And this is a fad that I've talked about on this channel many times. It's taken off in the 21st century. I wonder why. I know why. Because the 21st century has seen 2 outright villains as presidents of the United States. So that's got into the groundwater. And now a fad in biography writing is to find someone who is irredeemable and try to redeem them by pumping the air full of context and equivocation. And that sentence, let's read it again. He put an end to America's nuclear hegemony and single-handedly heated up the Cold War. But was he really evil? Those 2 parts cancel each other out. If you do the first, then you are the second. So there is no question, was he really? He did those things, that is indisputable, and therefore he was evil. But this author is clearly going to have more to say on the subject, and I will listen. Absolutely, I will listen. And could be convinced. You never know. This next one is, this is coming out from New York University Press, NYU Press, and this is, again, I don't know with these May books if their dates have changed, but this is one of the avalanche that we saw when I was still getting mail. We saw an avalanche of translated works, of translated literature of all kinds. more so in the first few months of 2020 than I had in all of 2019. And this is one of those. This is Impostors by Al-Hariri, translated by Michael Cooperson, with a foreword by Abdelfatah Kilito. That's what this is going to be. And this is a collection of 50 narratives about the adventures of an itinerant con man and master of persuasion, Abu Zaid al-Saruji, as told by the equally itinerant and often clueless narrator Al-Harith ibn Hammam. Composed by the 11th century Basran scholar Al-Hariri, Impostors is a highly influential example of the rhymed prose narratives known as makamat. And this is... Michael Cooperson offers a new translation of this essential work of Arabic literature in 50 different voices. Each imposture, Cooperson has Abu Zaid speak in different variety of English, ranging from the distinctive literary styles of authors such as Chaucer, Mark Twain, and Virginia Woolf, to global varieties of English, including Cockney rhyming slang, Nigerian English, Singlish, contemporary business jargon, and even a set of cryptic crossword clues. Featuring picaresque adventures and dazzling linguistics acrobatics, Impostors is a groundbreaking new translation of a classic work of literature, and the only translation of this that I've ever read. So I will go at this very eagerly. I am trying to stay open-minded about all of the works in translation that I've been getting, because I'm going to have to read them all. It's clearly a flavor of the beginning of the year. And then the last book, the last of these May releases I haven't quite read yet, is another case where I'm going to try to keep an open mind. I'm going to try to keep an open mind. It's going to be much harder. I've mentioned many times before that authors have a bank account with me. They start off completely even. They are a citizen walking in saying, I would like to start a bank account. And then they tend to that bank account. Now, if they're constantly depositing, they will have a lot of credit on my behalf. And the deposits will take the form of books or writings that I really like, that are really good. If they're constantly withdrawing, if one book after another is something I can't stand, that's poorly done, that I hate, that I fulminate against, well, then the new book that arrives is going to arrive with a bad debt on the books. And that is the case here. There is hardly any case that is greater than this. Maybe Pat Buchanan. But other than that, this is Stephen King. If It Bleeds, this is his collection, his new collection of short stories. Gives readers 4 brilliant new stories, sure to provoke as iconic as their predecessors. Once again, King's remarkable range is on full display. In the title story, reader favorite Holly Gibney, from the Bill Hodges trilogy The Outsider, must face her fears and possibly another outsider, this time on her own. I'd be willing to bet you a Boston cream pie that none of that is explained for a reader. That instead it's just King playing to the gallery. You already know this character. You already know the mise en scene. You already know everything about the background. I'm just going to take that for granted because I'm the world's #1 author. So I don't need to do any of the work to tell you what this is all about. I'm not going to tell you what all this is about. You either know or you don't know. I'd be willing to bet you a Boston cream pie that it is, therefore, a completely structurally defective story that makes no sense if you haven't read 4 books by this author. But anyway, in Mr. Harrington's Phone, an intergenerational friendship has a disturbing afterlife. In The Life of Chuck, the author explores beautifully how each of us contains multitudes. And in Rat, a struggling writer must contend with the darker side of ambition. If these stories show King's range, that's a big if. I'm sure that you recognize the novels of his own that each of those stories, as described, is ripping off. So that's a big if that they show his range. They also prove that certain themes endure. One of King's great concerns is evil. Really? And if it bleeds, there's plenty of it. Imagined in the title story as, quote, a big bird all frowsy and frosty gray. Okay, I don't think I can take much more. I can't take much more of the back of the book. So imagine how this is going to grate on me for a reading experience. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it this weekend. The new Stephen King. 4 stories. So there you go. That's a Friday Reads for you. Well, sorry to end on that note. If I'd been thinking, I would have ended with the Arabic literature. But we have If It Bleeds by Stephen King. We have Impostors by Al-Hariri in a new English translation that sounds like it is trying to match the author playfulness for playfulness. That would be great. Then Atomic Spy, A Life of Karl Fuchs. The Fire by Georg Friedrich. We have The Fire, about Nazi bombing of Germany, or Allied bombing of Germany. We have Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, with a short-lived TV adaptation cover. And finally, a guinea pig Romeo and Juliet. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. I'd like to see someone brave enough to do a miniature schnauzer, Romeo and Juliet. I'd like to see someone brave enough to do that. But anyway, that's your Friday Reads, and as usual, with Friday Reads, I want to know what you're doing. How are you coping? Well, I mean, I'm hearing. I leave my email on every video. Feel free to email me. Tell me how you're doing, what things are like, anything that's frustrating you. Need a shoulder to cry on? Feel free to use me. I'm right here. I'm online most of the time. I'm writing. In addition to reading, I'm writing all weekend long, so I will definitely be online. And as several of you have noticed, and I pointed out myself, I freely admit it, sometimes you will get an immediate and lengthy response to an email if I am trying to dodge a piece of writing, if I'm procrastinating, if I'm trying to get away from a thing that I don't want to write. Several of you have joked with me via email that, oh, I heard from you right away. You must be dodging something. That's not entirely true. I love hearing from you, but sometimes it is. So I'd love to know how you're doing, what your Friday reads, what your reading plans are as we enter May. Tell me all about it, and I will sign off for now. But I will eagerly be gobbling up all of my fellow booktubers' Friday reads because those are so much fun, especially when they start a month. When the Friday starts a month, that's extra fun. So I'll wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.